Be prepared to meet your doom! Instructions, that is. I have two real thoughts on the Doom instructions. First off, I wanted to give you just another little bit of practice on document design, designing effective documents, and working with your fellow students is a good chance to start sharing ideas and all of that stuff. The other thing, though, is I wanted you to have a little bit of practice doing instructions before your big instructions assignment is due. So that's why I'm struggling to get this video out on time to give you a little bit more feedback. Let's get to it. First off, I want everyone to know you really did a good job on this one. I know that doing group work is less than ideal, and this is particularly the case when we're not even in the same room, but I appreciate the way everyone finally came together and pulled out some decent instructions. So my disclaimer for this is that the main reason we're doing this and I'm doing this video is because I want to give you the tools to help fix the stuff you have. So I point out stuff that needs addressing, I point out things that aren't working. And I know that I come across sometimes as like I'm being mean and such, but I really don't mean to do that. I have autism, and one of the features of my autism is that I don't regulate my voice and my emotions the same way everyone else does. I really am just trying to help, and I really hope you take this in the spirit to which is intended. Not only help you figure out how to do this particular assignment better, but hopefully learn some lessons which are going to help you make the technical instructions, your major assignment that you should be working on, that much better. The things I point out here are probably things that I'm going to see in a lot of technical instructions, so let's get it all right. As always, when you see one of these graphics, check your own specific course documents to see the exact dates. Now, the standards I'm going to be used to judge this, and this also fits in with the technical instructions too, is I want to see how well these things work as instructions. Can you communicate how to best do a specific task in a way that anyone reading your instructions can successfully pull it off? I'm going to hold you to some of the stuff in the assignment sheet. Particularly, a chief criterion for this work is, would your reader be able to finish this level using only your instructions? Instructions are great, but we have to remember that the person who's reading them doesn't have any of the same experiences we have. So things that might seem fairly simple, straightforward, and commonplace to you might not be for the reader. You got to get in the reader's head. The other thing I'm going to point out from the technical instructions assignment is that while this assignment uses a video game for its subject, the document should more closely resemble actual honest-to-God technical instructions. I have to have you do some kind of task, and most people have never really consciously thought about video game instructions, so it works very well for the assignment. But the tendency for some people is to do a really cutesy document. No, let's make this look as real world as possible, because if it looks real world, then it's going to have more applicability to us. The assignment sheet also does give some specific features, some specific sections that you should have in your assignment sheet, and I'm going to be looking for those. I'm also going to be judging this on how well it actually hits its subject. Yeah, I want it to look like technical instructions, but how well does it really capture the mood of Doom within that framework? I will be looking at things like document design as well, because document design, as we've said before, isn't just about looking pretty. Document design has something to do with usability. A good-looking document will be more usable than a poorly designed document. When I'm seeing how well the actual instruction steps work, I'm going to apply two tests that I think I mentioned in the last memo. The first one is the broken leg test. Put yourself in this situation. You're at some job and you hurt yourself, and you have to have one of your coworkers set your broken leg, and they only have a printed off set of instructions to go by. If that set of instructions is written with the same clarity as the set of instructions you're working on, how much pain are you going to be through? You want your documents to be clear. You also want your documents to be specific enough for someone with no experience to do them. So I'm going to apply the grandmother test. If you take your grandmother and give them this instructions, will they be able to complete the level like a badass, or will they be struggling? This means you can't assume things. You can't put kill everybody in this room, because your grandmother wouldn't know how to kill everyone in this room unless your grandmother has special forces training. Who knows? Let's start with the education group. The education group's set of instructions look like this. And this. But wait, they also look like this. Yeah, this is a long set of instructions. Now, I appreciate the effort that was put into this thing, but this is actually just a group work assignment. Your time is tight. You've got lots of demands on your schedule. I understand this. Please don't waste all your time on homework or group work. I'd like you to put in a good effort on homework and group work, and I'd like you to really try, because it really is going to yield benefits to you. But you shouldn't be spending 4 or 5 hours doing this document, when you should spend that time focusing on stuff that are major assignments. Focus on the big stuff. Put forth your best effort on these, but don't kill yourself to do 15 hours worth of work on a document which is worth 5 or 10 points. It doesn't make sense. Again, I appreciate the level of effort put in, but try not to get too in the weeds with this. The homework and the group work is designed to help you practice skills that need to be demonstrated on these major assignments. Back to education. This has a very specific look that I have to admit does look good. However, it does kind of look more like a strategy guide than an actual set of instructions. It does the instruction thing, but it looks not like something you'd find out in the field. So in your technical instructions, make it look more like something you'd find out in the field, and less like, hey, cool video game. Now, if I'm doing a video game guide, I do want it to look like this, but we're just doing video games as a subject. Your instructions should look like technical instructions. Let's get a little bit specific. On these 2 pages, there are a few things. The heading is done in a serif font instead of a sans serif font, which is not ideal. Now that I notice it, the page on the right has a larger font than what's over on the page on the left, which I don't fully understand. Consistency isn't a bad thing unless there's reason to change things up. There's a space issue here, but it's that there's not enough space. When this document template has these boxes inside against a background, it's easy to think about that background, the wooden cratey, metal-y bits, to be the margins, but that's not how my eye perceives it. My eye perceives the bit that has the type in as being the full dimension of where the text goes, and there's no margins within that. So a little bit of space would be a good idea, particularly when you have things that should be bulleted or lists of things. There needs to be some level of space inward. I'd even put a bit of space between them to give more of a visual separation between the parts. On the other page, though, there's no space whatsoever between the paragraphs. And again, putting a visual break between paragraphs is going to communicate to the reader, hey, these are separate things. And that makes the reader's job easier, and it means that the readers are more easily able to follow the document. Again, very colorful, has images, lots of cool stuff, but because there's no space, it does have the effect of looking fairly cramped. And if it's cramped, readers tend to get overwhelmed. Readers who are overwhelmed tend not to spend all their concentration on it. Their mind starts to wander. So give it some space to breathe. Now, on this one, when we get to the individual steps of the process, it's broken down room by room. Awesome. But the room instructions are in paragraph form. And again, I'm thinking about broken leg test. If I'm trying to set someone's broken leg and I want to see step 3, I don't want to have to read through a whole paragraph. And you probably don't want that either if I'm setting your broken leg. Again, this is why we do things like bullets and ordered lists. These are steps in a process, so they should be an ordered list. I'd expect room 1, an image of room 1, a sentence or so about room 1, and then the steps I need to perform in order to succeed in room 1 before moving on to room 2, which does the same kind of thing. If you look at the other side, we've got these two images. Cool. They're not lined up, and I'm not really sure why the two screenshots aren't lined up, but that's not my major issue here. The images need to work with the text instead of looking like add-ons, and the way you do that is you label the particular image. The image on the left with the zigzag room, I'd call that figure A. Continue to the other hallway, as in figure 1, something like that. That way the images and the text work together and they reference each other. This is also extraordinarily long. We talked about that. Look to see if there are ways to condense it, because again, if I'm buying some product and I find a 25-page set of instructions, I'm going to start hyperventilating. Ain't nobody got time for that. Moving on to the technology group. The technology group's document looks like this. And my first thought upon looking at it is it looks a little bit blah. There's nothing extraordinary about it. When we talked about resumes, in the resume battle, I said that if the resume looks dull, it's not going to grab anyone's attention, and people will discard it. Same thing with instructions. You want readers to engage in your text, make it look like something they want to engage in. The other thing I notice is that there are no graphics in here whatsoever except for the map. Yay on the map, because I think this is, out of the two classes I'm teaching, the only one that included a map of the level, which is a little bit weird to me. So awesome. Why it's on the end, I don't really know. I would want the text to reference the image, and they don't work together. This is very much an addendum. Not to mention that the heading for a map is actually on page 2. Then you end up the last page with this giant amount of empty space in here, and that tends to draw your reader's eye towards it. Let's get into the specifics of it. Page 1 is missing a few things that are on the assignment sheet. The assignment sheet says warnings and safety information, introduction, list of components. And this talks a little bit about the components. There's no images of any of them, so I don't know what the ammo looks like, what the armor bonuses look like. It doesn't tell me what enemies I should look for or anything like that. It uses serif font for everything. It doesn't use the sans serif font to separate out the heading, and separating out the headings makes the headings more visually distinct, makes your organization scheme that much clearer, and makes it easier for your reader to get the sense of what you're trying to communicate. It's not the only thing. Let's look at how they talk about room 1. I talked about the broken leg test earlier, and the reason I bring that up is if I'm sitting there spasming in pain and you're looking through a set of instructions to figure out what you do in step number 3 and everything is in a giant paragraph, it's not going to be easy for you to find that specific bit of information, which is why generally when you have lists of things, you use bullets. And in this case, you have steps that need to be performed in a particular order, so that it should be an ordered list. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that would help communicate the actual process a little bit more clearly to the reader. The transportation group's submission looks like this. It has the memo heading in it. The problem is this is a set of instructions. It's not a memo. So we don't really want the memo heading on here. Whenever possible, have these look like real-world documents. Yeah, I know I say, if it doesn't say what format to do it as a memo, but this one did say instructions, which is the format. Nitpicky a little bit, yeah, but still, details matter in this thing. This has an introduction. It does not have the warnings, which were required. It does label some components, like enemies encountered and weapons. It doesn't provide any images of them, so I have no idea what they actually look like, which is an issue. And then we have all of this blank space. Yeah, I went there. Moving on, this is what the first stage of the instructions look like. And in terms of organization, it strikes me as a little random. I don't know what images go with what text, what order they're supposed to be in. There's a giant bit of blank space at the top and bottom right. As I said, just a little bit random, and it doesn't guide me through the process. The next page has a few other things. If you want to have those images work with the text, the easiest way to do so is to label the images and refer to those labels in the text. Upon entering room 1 as seen in image A, shoot the zombie man to the left. Something like that. Let's look at the bottom. Follow the hallway and eliminate any enemies. It's not enough information for your poor old grandmother to succeed at this task. It's just not. How do you eliminate the enemies? Which ones are enemies? What do I eliminate the enemies with? Can you picture your grandmother saying these things? Also, the steps for each of the rooms are just listed in bullets when they're steps to be performed in order, so they should be ordered lists. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3. These things need to be performed in a specific order. Now, this is a battle, so I have to present a winner. And while I like the work people did, particularly given the time you had and the difficulties working remote, I got to pick someone. So I'm going to pick the education groups. Because while the design isn't what I think of the technical instructions, it does have a lot of effort put into design. So kudos to you. Again, thanks for all the good work on this one. I know some of my comments might come across as a little bit, but that's not really how I intended. I just wanted to make sure we focus on things that you could have fixed, so you can start thinking about, do I need to fix this in my actual instructions? Is this something I need to keep looking at? So I appreciate all your hard work, but let's keep polishing it, getting it better and better, and use my comments towards that goal. See you next time.